Hello, my name is Jeff Lestz. I'm the CEO of Genistar. I'd like to welcome you here today to our second podcast of Financial Freedom for All. And today we've got a very special guest with us, Debnam, and we're going to be discussing something that I think is a really hot topic on AI, artificial intelligence, and how that you can actually make it your co-pilot and not being on autopilot. It's not going to be replacing your job, but how that you can actually embrace it, get a better understanding of the future. So, Dan, welcome. We're glad to have you here today.
Thanks, Jeff. It's really great to be here.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dan, you did a presentation for all of our staff today. Everybody loved it. And thank you so much for coming in and the service that you provide for businesses and organizations, I think is incredible. You know, to me, AI is one of those things you can fight it, but it's coming whether you like it or not. And to me, it'd be a little bit like going out and throwing rocks at the sun and going, "Don't come up." It's going to come up, and so we've decided to embrace this. And I just was wondering if maybe you could just share a little bit about who you are and the whole world of AI, and maybe how you got into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my mission at the moment is to help demystify AI. Everyone's talking about it. You go on to LinkedIn, you go on to Google, you turn on the news, everyone's talking about AI ever since ChatGPT kind of exploded. Now, I started exploring AI probably around 2020, 2021. I was in a corporate company and we were looking at how we might adopt this technology. But the problem was it wasn't really democratized at that moment. It was very expensive. AI engineers, $250,000 if you want to try and get a really great one right now. So I started experimenting and I went and set up my own company. And the reason I did that is because my background is creative. I've been a web designer, graphic designer. I've done all things kind of creative, and marketing is my passion. And ChatGPT launched, or technology similar to ChatGPT even before then in 2022. And I was a little bit worried for my colleagues, for my friends, for all these connections I'd built in the industry. How is AI going to disrupt them? So I made it my mission at that point to bring people along. We can't ignore it.
Yes.
I love your analogy of like the sun rising. You can't ignore it.
That's right.
So how do we bring people along on that journey? And my company that I set up in 2022, we did so in a way to help copywriters. They were the ones that were most threatened by ChatGPT. All of a sudden, you can speak to this magical little tool and it can write you a book. It's kind of incredible. Not incredible if you're a copywriter.
Yes.
Now, we had the vision that, of course, this would be a tool. This wouldn't be a way of replacing their talent. So I created a company to do exactly that. Show these copywriters, look, you guys are incredibly talented.
That's great.
You've done this for 25 years. How do we bring you along?
Yeah. You know what I love about that is, I've been in business for myself for over 4 decades. And I always have a lot of especially young people that go, "Jeff, what's the key to being successful in business?" And I said, find a need, find a pain point, and fix it. And I think that's what you're doing. And one of the questions I've got for you here, Dan, is what are the areas that, because most people are fearful of AI. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my job. So it's going to replace the world. It's going to all be on autopilot." Talk a little bit about that and why people should not fear, or should they fear, AI?
Yeah, it's a really good question. There isn't a really simple answer to that because, like anything, in the wrong hands, these tools can be quite destructive. And artificial intelligence isn't new. Okay, so Alan Turing in the 1950s was writing a paper on artificial intelligence. It's been in every device. I mean, anyone here that's got a smartphone has one of these speakers at home, a smart speaker like an Alexa. Anyone that's scrolling through TikTok, this is all kind of AI and algorithmic based. It's been around for a really long time. So I try and comfort people with that knowledge that actually this isn't as new as maybe it feels, and it's not as scary as maybe it feels. We're in the era of generative AI, which is where AI has now got the capabilities to create things for us. Now, it would be really easy for people to look at that and go, great, we can replace everyone because it can write, it can create video, it can create audio. But it's a bit like giving a child a paintbrush. Okay, it's a tool. They might make a lot of mess. Give that to a professional, it's going to look a lot more refined.
That's a great analogy.
And that's kind of how I see AI today, which is in the right hands, it's an incredible tool.
Yeah.
But you still need to be talented. You still need to understand how to use it. Now, as time goes on, these tools are going to become easier to use, of course, and they are going to replace some of the mundane, repetitive tasks. We are a very advanced species. It's why we are top of the food chain. We shouldn't be. Have you ever seen a crocodile or an alligator? Like, we shouldn't be top of the food chain.
That's right.
We are, because we've evolved to be so, and we're very aware and conscious of that. And I think what we have to remember is that we are incredibly talented as people, all of us. Some of us are very creative, some of us are very analytical, some of us have natural leadership abilities. Whatever it might be, there's a lot of unique things in the human race. What AI has the power to do is to remove some of the mundane. No one, I haven't met anyone yet that loves copying data from spreadsheets. I just haven't met that person. Right. No one loves doing really high frequency, repetitive, low intelligence tasks. No one likes that. AI now has the opportunity to take some of that bandwidth that you're otherwise using on these really, really boring tasks, but important tasks. Businesses can't run without data, and give us back some of that creativity and some of that freedom.
That's great.
And it's why I really like that term, which is co-pilot, not autopilot. Bring this along with you.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to replace you.
So Dan, can you give us a couple of tips on how AI could either help me personally in my everyday life or possibly in business?
So AI has the capability to help in both our personal lives and in business. And the way that I would do that, the example I love to give about personal life is I always think about weddings. How stressful are weddings to plan? They are, aren't they? What's the thing they say? The most stressful things in your life are weddings, moving home, and funerals, or something like that.
Yes.
So I look at wedding planning. So I do this fun exercise when I'm at conferences where I say, okay, let's take ChatGPT or your version of that, and let's make it a wedding planner. And, you put all your seating arrangements in. So here's the list of guests, 120 people go in, and then tell it a story and say, well, actually, Aunt Brenda doesn't like Uncle Mark on the other side of the family because they had a fling back in the 80s and they don't talk to each other. And you can kind of tell it the story of like, here's all the complications about seating plans. Yeah. And then say to AI, over to you. Wow. I write my seating plan for you. Yeah. It can schedule your day.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah, it can schedule your day. It can do all sorts of things personally. The biggest tip I can give anyone, whether personal or business with AI, is get AI to ask you questions. It's like my top tip. So if you're asking AI to do something for you, give it the instructions. I have a framework for this that I can share with you after, but give it the instruction, what you want it to do, and then always finish your instruction, which we call prompting. Always finish your instruction with the pausing statement, which basically means before you do the thing I've just asked you to do, so before you give me my wedding planning list, ask me questions that will help you perform that task better.
Wow.
And it's a really powerful thing to do, whether you're doing it for personal or business, because I've never not had it ask me questions that I hadn't thought of. It will always ask me something, some detail or something I've missed to help it increase the output.
That's amazing. That, to me, and again, I've been using ChatGPT now for, 6-7 months. I've never even thought about that. I've always been amazed how it has continuity in the same chain of thought. But I think what you're saying, let me see if I've got this correct. Let's say as an example, I'm asking it, what's the best automobile that I should purchase? But before I complete that, I say, ask me some questions on how that you can actually give me better advice. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's exactly it. The same way that you would work with a team member in business, you would, you give them great quality instructions, you'll get great quality output. You give them, rubbish instructions, you're going to get probably somewhere along the lines of something not very good back. And AI will just, it is conversational. So the biggest barrier I try and help people overcome when they're using tools, whether it's ChatGPT or one of the thousands of tools that are out there, be a bit more conversational with it. And like you would if you were sat next to a colleague or a new person that's working for you, they don't have context. So you can write context into your prompt. And I use the word prompt there just for absolute clarity. That's the kind of instruction you're giving to the AI. You can add context into your prompt, but you're not going to be able to tell the full story.
Yeah.
So just ask AI at the very end, before you carry on doing X, Y, Z, whatever I've just asked you.
Very good.
Ask me some questions.
Yeah. Dan, you've mentioned a couple of times that we've spoken this word superpowers, AI superpowers. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, again, the superpowers probably relate more to the generative AI, which is the era that we're in now, which is where AI can generate things for us.
So this is AGI.
Not quite, no. So generative AI is kind of where we are today. So ChatGPT is generative AI. That's where it's generating new things based on input that it's already got and training that it's already had.
So Dan, you've mentioned to me the difference between AGI and AI. I never knew that there was this advanced. Can you explain, kind of unpack that a little bit? What's the difference between AI and AGI?
Yeah, okay, it's a great question. So the main difference between AI and AGI, which is what's coming essentially, is artificial general intelligence is going to be the next evolution of AI, which is where it can really think and complete tasks at a far greater capacity than human beings. So it's going to have, what we're not talking about is like Terminator Judgment Day, where it's aware and conscious. We're not quite there yet, but we're not a million steps away from that when we have AGI. Now, AGI currently is not available. It currently doesn't exist according to the companies that are behind these AIs, and there's different levels of trust of that. One thing I will say is that Elon Musk made a prediction that AGI, artificial general intelligence, will be with us by 2029. And he made that prediction about a year ago. But the pace at which artificial intelligence is developing even outdates that information from just 12 months ago. And now it feels like it's going to come sooner. And there's been some fairly senior executives at OpenAI, which are the company behind ChatGPT, some fairly senior executives that have left the company in recent months because of their concerns over AGI and the development of AGI. But what does this mean? What does this mean for us? For us mere mortals? I think in reality, it doesn't serve for artificial and general intelligence to enter the world right now. I think it would destabilize things so much because we would then have less justification for not using it because commercially it will become far cheaper than human beings.
Wow.
Of course it will. It doesn't clock off at 5 o'clock. It doesn't have a sick day. It doesn't have a child that needs care and attention and therefore you can't come to work. It doesn't switch off at weekends. That could be very attractive for people. And part of my mission right now is to try and encourage leaders of businesses not to think immediately there and empower the people that they have in their organizations. Because as I mentioned earlier when I was talking to your company, it's going to become very easy to replace people with artificial general intelligence, AGI, but it's definitely not ethical. And people still possess something very special. Emotion, memory, history, gut feeling. Like, what is gut feeling? Program gut feeling for me, Jeff.
Yeah, can't do that.
You can't. So there's always going to be a real need for that. And I think we have to challenge the status quo of what's coming. But if you're a company or if you're a person listening to this now and you're not in some way embracing AI as it is today, how on earth are you going to be ready for what's coming? And that's the message right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know as a leader, I'm challenged in that, it's all about attitude, isn't it? I can look at it and go, oh my gosh, this is a threat, or I can embrace it and learn it. Because my generation, so I'm one of the baby boomers, we didn't grow up with computers. We didn't grow up with any of this. I'm actually very excited about this because I'm like, wow, I feel like a little kid in a candy shop because I'm actually learning something new. One of my good friends is actually a consultant to our company. I said to him one day, I think we were having a drink, and I said, why in the world would Elon Musk spend billions on Twitter? And he said something to me that I never even thought of. He said, because he's purchased all of that human interaction that he's now able to pour into Twitter. Now, you've mentioned to me about when we go on to ChatGPT, be careful of what you put in there because you might think it's free, but it's really not free. You're kind of paying for it. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I don't think most people think about that.
No, one of the things that people need to be very conscious of today is what data they are training these AI models with. So these are all trained on machine learning. So it needs a lot of data. That's how ChatGPT have definitely progressed as fast as they have. Because in 2022, on the 30th of November, they decided to open the floodgates and welcome users on board. By February the following year, 3 months later, 100 million users.
Wow.
Today, they've got 180 million active users. So they went from a very small data set to a almost unthinkable amount of data, and it progressed incredibly quick. So that's how these models are built. So that's the first thing we need to remember. Then it comes down to what am I putting in, and what is the price to that? Now, ChatGPT have a free model, which you can go on to right now and you can use. And a lot of these AIs actually have a free model. In their free model, you do not, as the user, you do not have the option to turn off training data. So what I mean by that is everything you're putting in there, you're basically saying, I'm using your tool for free and you can have my data. So that's the cost. And Apple have just announced Apple Intelligence, and they've made some sweeping statements about their integration with OpenAI and ChatGPT. And one of the things they said is that, we're not in a commercial partnership with ChatGPT. And I sat there listening to that thinking, okay, well, nothing is free in this world. So if you're not in a direct commercial relationship, what are you giving them that benefits them?
Yeah.
So that's my kind of cautionary tale on this, is that if it's free, you're paying with your data. That's a general rule of thumb with anything technology based right now.
So don't put anything personalized in there.
Yeah,
Keep it very generic. Is that what you're saying?
If you wouldn't go out in the street and broadcast it, if you wouldn't write it all over Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, you probably shouldn't put it in AI.
Great advice. Great advice. Dan, you've worked in direct sales before, which I think is so unique in that you're not just an IT guy and, doing this AI. You've been out there face to face with people. How do you see this? I mean, first of all, is the direct selling business ready for AI, and how can this actually help companies like that?
Direct selling has changed fundamentally over the last decade and will continue to change. And AI just plays a part in that. I believe that because of what AI creates, which is a lot of automated and generated content, the trade-off there is that it's not as authentic. I was scrolling through TikTok the other day and I saw this great, influencer marketing video, and it looked, very real. Only because I've seen so many AI videos did I just about recognize that it wasn't a real person. But it was shot selfie style. She was walking down the street. She had a handbag on, and the video was promoting this handbag. And, I scroll down 5 videos later, there she is, the same person, same street, different color top, different voice, different product. And I thought, initially my AI geekness was like, wow, this is amazing. But then I was like, okay, wow, this is an era now of unauthentic, content. So why is that relevant to direct selling? Well, what's the one thing that direct selling has? Is authenticity.
Absolutely.
It's human to human contact. Yeah. It's a real premium. Right. It's going to become a new commodity. And that doesn't mean that direct selling shouldn't embrace AI. Absolutely, of course it should, especially for personalization, especially for getting in front of people and delivering things like highly personalized training and basically trying to empower people to have more success in their direct selling business, I totally endorse that. But the other side of the coin is direct selling gives brands access to real, authentic people that are eyeball to eyeball. They're in the living rooms, they're in the coffee shops, they're on the phone, and it's real human connection.
Yeah.
And that is going to become incredibly valuable. So if you're in direct selling right now, what a time to be here.
Yeah.
Because AI, of course, is going to make massive efficiency savings and unlock things that weren't possible before. Yeah. But it's also going to increase the value of the people in these companies.
It's almost like the more things change, the more the foundational stones of interaction. Okay, I mean, listen, I don't know anybody that goes, I really like poor service. I really like having to push 1, push 3, push 4, use your password. None of us like that in personalization. And the fact is that we live in a totally different generation than from when I grew up. I don't know if I'm sure you've heard this term. Back when I was a kid, especially older people, I would always use the term generation gap. Mm. And there's no doubt about it that if I go talk to a teenager or someone, Gen Z
right now, yeah.
Right now, we're like totally different people. And in our business, we're trying to find ways that we can appeal to that generation because, correct me if I'm wrong, but here's a generation that's totally changed now. They're looking at multi-income, streams instead of just having a job for 30 years or whatever it might be. Would you mind kind of talking a little bit about that?
Yeah, and Gen Z is definitely something worth looking at because I don't know the exact upper age of Gen Z right now. I think it's 24, 25. But before I come on to kind of the multi-income aspect of that, I think the layer before that is that Gen Z have grown up on technology, but on smart technology, not the Nokia 3310 that I had. There's nothing wrong with that phone. It had a great game called Snake on it, I'm sure you remember.
By the way, I grew up on the gerbil.
Oh, yeah.
The gerbil in the cage, back when the internet was... the real
the weird noises, yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Which, if you played that clip to a Gen Z now, they would have no idea.
There was a guy in our office yesterday, and he was asking for some advice on getting into sales. How can I get better? And I said, well, years ago, I listened to this set of cassette tapes, and when I said it, Dan, he kind of looked at me like a puppy dog with a real high pitched whistle, and he's like, "A what?" I said, a cassette tape. I said, "Have you ever heard of a cassette tape?" He said, "Never heard of that before." So yeah,
but this is the thing; it's a different language. So Gen Z have not only grown up on technology; they've grown up on smart technology. They've grown up on iPhones, Android, tablets. The biggest thing with that, though, you got to think in their hands they've had social media, so they already understand how algorithms work, even if they don't know that's what it is. Snapchat have an AI bot inside of Snapchat now. You can just talk to it a bit like ChatGPT. Wow. This technology is already in their hands and it's free. Again, I circle back to, is it really free if it's got your data? But they're growing up on this technology. So their expectation of anything they look at, whether it's an employer, a side hustle, whatever it might be, if it's not a technology first business, if it hasn't got a chatbot, an AI, very easy video content, and if it doesn't have all these, which as a mature company, you might look at that and go, this is cutting edge stuff. They're looking at that as, this is basic. This is day one. Like if I look at a company now, you don't have all these things, I'm going to challenge you. Now, they might not be looking at coming into your company right now, but they will be in the next 5 years, 10 years. So, and that kind of leans into the multi-income thing, which is most of these younger people in Gen Z and younger have grown up with influencers in their life. Now, if I said the word influencer to you 20 years ago, it would have had a very different meaning. And if I said micro-influencer or YouTuber, I mean, YouTuber wasn't even a word.
Yeah.
But they've grown up watching these people monetize their audience. And it used to be big creators like Mr. Beast is obviously the number one subscribed YouTube channel now in the world. that feels a bit unattainable because he's making obscene amounts of money. But now we have the generation of macro and micro influencers who are maybe making another £500 a month from a brand deal, or they get approached by a company for sponsorship. Can you feature our book or our product, whatever it might be, and we'll pay you £400. They're growing up in this world. They're already preconditioned to multi-income.
Yeah.
They don't aspire to a 9-to-5 cubicle job. And for so long in our industry, we've used that almost as the, escape the rat race, don't do the 9-to-5. If you use that language of them now, they won't even relate to that because that was never on their wish list anyway. They were already going to leave school and have 7 jobs or 7 things, because they're watching their influencers live out in Dubai and doing social media marketing or whatever it might be. They're already preconditioned to that.
Wow. So, I'm hoping that this thing goes viral and we have lots of young people on here. I hope that we end up with a bunch of, Gen Z. If I was, a Gen Z person and I came to you for some career advice because I have an interest in this area, any advice you'd give me? Say I'm 25 years old or 19 years old, whatever it might be. Because, there's industries that have come out of this now. I mean, there's, kids that are young people that have been building video games and, that whole industry took off. I think there's going to be a great future here, but any advice that you'd have to me?
I want to say something to grab the attention of any Gen Z person listening right now, which is you could be the next Netflix director or producer. Never before have we been alive in a time where it's been possible to think of an idea in your bedroom, create the script with ChatGPT, create a storyboard with Midjourney, which is an image AI, bring it to life, and you can do all of this and curate almost a movie from your bedroom. I was building Lego at 14, 15, not movies. But this is a very, very exciting time to be alive. And my biggest advice is go out there and explore. Be smart with it. Okay, so if it's free, it's not. You're giving away your data. So just remember that. Yeah. But go out there and explore and become an amazing prompt engineer. Let me just explain that term for anyone that's not aware of what that is. A prompt engineer is basically whenever you're engaging with AI, whenever you're giving it instructions, that's a prompt. And engineering it is refining that prompt and accepting that the first one that you gave probably isn't the last one that you should give. And going in there and fine-tuning it and giving it more context, adding more detail until you're starting to get results that are incredible. The best way to experiment with this is something called Midjourney, which is to create images. When I first started using Midjourney, I would give it maybe 4 words. And it would return an amazing image, but it wasn't the image that I had in my head. And as time has gone on, I've got better and better at prompting it, giving it context, giving it nuance, giving it kind of like artistic direction. And my prompts are probably like 60 or 70 words long now, but the end result is incredible.
Now, Midjourney, help educate me here, is that similar to a ChatGPT or just a different program or a different software package?
Yeah, so it's a different AI altogether, but the interface is similar. You give it an instruction, you ask it to do something, but it specifically returns images. So it's designed to build images. And you can choose what style, what art direction you want to give it. Is it a cartoon? Should it look like a Picasso? Should it look super realistic? And it's a creative medium that I encourage people to go out and play with. But yeah, that's my message to Gen Z right now is go out and become really great at prompting because you're going to give yourself so much value to anyone that you work for in the future if you can be really good at that. Because you can transpose that to any tool.
It's good.
Become great at prompting in one, and it's the same logic, it's the same structure with any, and be excited about what you can create now.
I think what's so great about what you're saying is that learn personal interaction. Okay, now you mentioned what you were doing when you were 14, 15. I remember the first book I was given on personal development when I was 15 years old. Still a great book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. I know you've heard of it. Okay? Probably most young people have not heard of it because they're too busy doing this, with their phones or whatever. But I would encourage young people, the advice that was given to me as a young person, career advice, was, Jeff, whatever you do, become a good people person. Because if you do that, your career is unlimited. And I think if you do both of these things, end up with how to win friends, which is really just about engaging with people. Don't be doing this much talking, but find out about people, be an interesting, don't just be interesting, but be interested in other people. And so my advice to people would be, become a good people person. Read that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm assuming you read it
I did, and I think it's really great advice. And if I look back at my own career, one of the skills that I did learn very early was how to talk to people.
Yeah.
And actually, if there was one thing I could say underpins some of my success, it is that ability to not just be great at doing something, it's being able to communicate it in a way that people understand.
Right.
Some people are naturally good at that, and some people need to work on it.
Yeah.
If you're not in the natural camp, be in the working on it camp. And How to Win Friends and Influence People is my go-to book that I recommend to everyone. It's a great starting point.
I have a good friend of mine that's an accountant, and of course accountants and probably even IT people and engineers and those more technical guys, people go, well, there's no personality. And this friend of mine who was an accountant, he said, I'm an accountant with a personality. He said, because I love people. And that's, I think the key is just, become a good people person, but you can also still use all that technology. In fact, I would think with a good personality, you'll actually be more creative when it comes to interaction with AI. So, Dan, there's some advice I guess I'd like to give you. I mean, our listeners may not be interested in this, but you've come in, you've given us a presentation, you know a little bit about what we do as far as, we financial education, that type of thing. What do you have any advice? We're going to be talking further, obviously, but do you have any advice for how we, specifically Genistar, the financial services, financial education, any ideas that might be specific to us?
Yeah, I think when it comes to Genistar and adopting AI and what the kind of advantages of that mean for you, I think this is going to give you a platform or an opportunity to create more content that speaks to the audience. If financial education is one of your kind of pillars of what Genistar does, one of the barriers to that often is staying up to date and being able to produce content quickly, being able to produce content in multiple formats. Like, gone are the days now where you can send out a 30-page document. They want that in video, they want it on a podcast, they want it split down into short videos for YouTube, TikTok. And as your team here will know, that takes a lot of work, And especially if you're trying to put out really good content, it's not something you can do quickly. Where do I think AI helps with that? I know your team here are already using AI in some areas of what they're doing, which I was really impressed to hear. And I think it can really help speed up the content production process, which in turn means you can get content out quicker, multiple formats, and in turn you can deliver on your purpose and your mission, which is to really help deliver financial education without compromising on the quality. And if that's not the biggest superpower right now, what is? I mean, this is literally where AI is right now, to help with content production, to help with video, to help with editing, to help with splitting down, a podcast like this into what's the 20 best parts of that podcast and then put them out as TikToks. That just empowers your team to get really great, valuable content out in front of the market quicker.
Great. Well, Dan, listen, thank you so much for being our guest here today. I'm looking forward to having further conversations with you, bringing you in, working with our team, helping us to become a more efficient, more effective, moving faster, quicker, helping empower our team with this. It was so good to have all of our team in there, and we have several young people, but every one of them, I was kind of sitting off to the side, I was watching their face, and it reminded me of a little kid going into an ice cream shop, and they're like, "No, I want chocolate. No, I want vanilla. I want strawberry." And it was so good, and I was hoping that was the response. So again, you did a fantastic job for us. Now, for our listeners, if they want to know more about AI and more about your business, because in fact, tell us a little bit more about what your business does, because I think that might be helpful in that here I am, I'm a business. What services can you offer me or other business owners or individuals?
Yeah, so my business was set up in 2022 to help copywriters migrate with AI, and that's our core business. Because we've built this company with a clean sheet of paper, with no legacy systems, no legacy habits or processes, we've managed to build an incredibly efficient business. As of recording this, we've got less than 10 full-time staff. We operate at the capacity of about 50 staff. Our company is 90% automated, and that business is growing. It's very healthy. It's a SaaS model business, and it helps companies produce content at scale. So if anyone's listening and they want content, high quality copywritten content, but also be at the cutting edge of AI, we can help with that. But from that, because we've built this, I was in so many conversations with people like yourself, Jeff, where they were saying, "How did you do that? How did you break even and start becoming profitable within 10 months in a technology business? How did you, get your pre-revenue valuation so high?" And I realized there was value in that. And we've got an incredibly capable team in-house that have built our business and our software and all on AI and automation. So we're in the process now of setting up a consultancy that just does that. And we're working with some clients already. Hoping Genistar will be one of them, where we're coming in and we're working with the company, but bringing people along. This is my thing. Yeah. I don't want to come in like a helicopter and just go, right, AI in and disrupt the whole company and upset people. This is very much about, before we innovate and before we create something really exciting, let's become efficient. Let me show you how I've just done this. In my business, where I don't come with the biases of what you've done in the past. I don't come with a legacy. I come as a lean, quick-moving entrepreneur that's understood and embraced AI. How can we borrow some of that knowledge and implant that straight into your company to give everyone some capacity back and get everyone to feel the benefit of AI, not think about it? Because when your whole company is feeling the benefits of AI and they realize, oh, this guy hasn't come in and just replaced us with AI, which is not my mission at all. And we only work with companies that align with that. Once you've got everyone feeling the benefits, then it's so much easier to get the rest of the organization to really innovate and be more creative, strategic, kill the mundane and empower the creativity is kind of what we do.
So let me just, again, especially for business owners, so just as an example, we have an existing company. We've got several thousand representatives. I think that we're good, but we're like Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. We're wanting to go from good to great. We don't want to be satisfied. We'd like to go 10x. We'd like to go 10 times, over the next couple of years. So am I correct that you probably would come in and almost do sort of a survey or an audit? And then from that, kind of come back and say, okay, here's the key areas where we think that we can help you to become more efficient, and then also kind of a roadmap on where we're going with it.
That's exactly how our framework is set up. So we do a discovery phase, which is all about getting into your organization, talking to people at every level of the company, and getting everyone aligned on what we're trying to do, really understanding some of the opportunities. Every company we've been in so far, there are some common grounds where I'm like, yeah, every company could benefit from that. And every single one that I've been in so far, there are very, very unique examples of something very inefficient happening, usually with the highest paid members of staff doing the lowest skilled things because they just mop it up and wear multiple hats. So definitely that. And then, yeah, as you say, we work with the company to make them far more efficient whilst we zoom out and look at the roadmap and go, okay, now we've done that. Now everyone's on board. Now we are an AI-based business. How do we evolve to that? Yeah. And one thing to say here, like I said earlier, artificial general intelligence is on the way. If you're not mastering and embedding and incorporating AI as it stands today in your company, you are definitely not going to be ready for what comes next. Yeah. And that's my message to everyone, whether working with us, whether working with anyone, but you need to be progressing in this area. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. It's great. But do you mind just telling people how they can get in touch with you, your website, or whatever you want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is Conturae.com. So that's Conturae.com. If you can pronounce it, I'll give you a bonus. But LinkedIn's my thing. So I give a lot of free information and resource on LinkedIn. So if you just find me, Dan Debnam, on LinkedIn, probably the best way to connect with me. You'll come through to me directly as well. Not AI, I promise. And yeah, there's lots of free resources. And if anything today was of value, LinkedIn gives me a platform to share that in a more visual way with video and demonstrations.
And thank you again so much, Dan. And I would encourage all of you to, to really give this some thought. Because again, guys, it's probably kind of like, back in the days of the horse and buggy, people said, oh, cars are never going to take over. Or back in the days when electric came out, if you really study all that, there were all the skeptics, electricity is never going to work, okay? I want to be one of those people to embrace change, to be able to really be able to go with the times. And listen, if someone of my age, in my mid-60s, can do that, then I know that anybody else can too. I'm excited about it. I almost feel like I got a new lease on life. It's like, wow, here's a new toy. Here's a new way to go from good to great. So thank you all for listening. I hope that you get in touch with Dan. And if we can do anything here at Genistar to help you get on the road to financial freedom, please feel free to contact us. Have a great day.